I think if we're fortunate enough to live a few decades, as I have, that we encounter thin places at various times in our lives. I want to tell you about a thin place that I experienced with my mom, whose name was Elizabeth Kuhn. She was a woman of faith for whom God was very present. God was present in her daily life. And she was one who believed to whom much is given, much is expected. She was a teacher, and she was devoted to her students, to her family, to her church, to her community. She lived life with gusto. In her late 80s, she developed kidney failure. And my father had passed away about 8 months before this diagnosis. And when it became apparent that absent dialysis, she was going to die, we had assumed that she probably would just choose to allow things to take their course. So imagine our surprise when she, upon given the option by the doctor to simply let things take their course and fade away, she announced, "I'm not ready to sign my death certificate." And so began 14 months of dialysis. But in the spring of 2012, it became increasingly clear that this was not for long. And on her last day in April of 2012, her pastor visited, friends stopped by the hushed room. Roy and I stood vigil. The hours passed. And late that evening, after taking a brief break, I returned to her room. And she lay in the semi-darkness in bed, semi-conscious. And initially, I settled into a lounge chair that was nearby and pulled up a blanket. And then as I lay there drowsily, I thought, oh my goodness, I can't go to sleep like the disciples in the garden. I've got to get up and be with my mother so that she knows I'm here. And so I got up and went to her bedside, not quite certain what to say or to do. And in that moment, that bedside became a sacred space. She had been vigilant, watching over all of her family, fighting for all of us, for herself, and it wasn't easy for her to let go. But God was there. In those brief moments, talking with her and praying, I reminded her of all the family who was in heaven waiting for her, and of the fact that God was ready for her, and the fact that we would try our best to behave ourselves after she was gone in a way that she would want us to do. And her breathing calmed, and as her spirit departed, there was this overwhelming sense of God's presence. And all was at peace. Thanks be to God. It's this heaven and earth coming together. And if you can be so fortunate as to both appreciate that and recognize it when it's happening, I don't know what larger a blessing you could have.